Hello, I'm Shrivalda Burma from India, and I work as an assistant professor of English. And most of my time is spent on making notes and lessons, preparing lessons for my students in the class, and to escape the daily tediousness of life, daily tedium of life, to escape the banality of life. Uh, I have I read. I read whatever I can get my hands on, uh, and I love reading novels. So I read quite a lot of novels. Whenever I get the time, I peer into a book and flip through the pages, scan the words, and this helps me. This is almost therapeutic. This helps me a lot uh, to escape the daily business of living and delve into a different world. But that world is also about life and living, but it is always from somebody's perspective. There is a different story. I can go to Russia, Trinidad, anywhere, Ireland, Dublin. So a book is a gateway to dream. And today I want to discuss a book because also the place where I live, I do not have many people around me who love reading books. My wife, especially, does not spend much of her time reading books. She's into some other things like embroidery and other stuff, which takes quite a lot of skill and patience. And I am into books, and I also write poetry a bit. Uh, reading books help me a lot, but also because of the fact that most of the time I have to read uh, whatever is prescribed for the students. I have to read the syllabus of the students, and this has become a very hackneyed and dull practice for me because I have been doing it for quite a long time. Because the same syllabus I have studied it myself as a student, and I have to keep teaching it year after year after year. So sometimes reading something different gives you a perspective and helps me to tell anecdotes from other stories, other novels that I have read in the class, so that I can deliver the lecture in a different way. So this book, A House for Mr. Biswas, as you can see, this is a very hefty book from the prologue to the afterword, from the beginning till the end. This comprises of 627 pages, and every bit of it is fun. Reading this book has been quite very not quite it has been tremendously pleasurable for me. uh, Actually, I started reading this book. I first read this book in the September of 2021. Then it became quite a uh, habit that I started to peer into this book because uh, I find this book, I can connect with this book very much. And also, about connection is that uh, chatting about books or talking about books is a very good way to connect with people, because books are about life, about the essential things of life: love, kindness, denial, death. And in our everyday life, we often forget to speak or contemplate about these things, and we lose the essence of living if we forget what are the things involved in living. So this book has given me that you can say this book has revealed to me about the uh, essence of living. What are the things that are uh, involved in the act of living? Uh, and uh, This book is very fascinating. It is written in a very humorous and ironical style. The writer, I forgot to mention the writer, it is V.S Naipaul, and I think many of you heard his name. He has won the Nobel Prize. He has won the Nobel Prize in 2001. He has also received a knighthood for his services to literature in 1990. His writing career began during the mid 1950s, and Mr. Biswas is his he started writing Mr. Biswas around in 1955, and he also won a Booker Prize for his book In a Free State. So he has many accolades and many awards to his name, and he is a worthy writer to look upon. And this is the only work of his I have read, and uh, I'm going to speak to you about this book, uh, if I may. Uh, so, uh, this book is essentially and mostly about a character called Mr. Biswas. His first name is Mohan. His whole name is Mr. Mohan Biswas. He is a man of Indian origin living in Trinidad. His family is of Indian origin. They are living in Trinidad. Uh, and Mr. Biswas loses his father at quite a young age, and uh, his birth since his birth since infancy he has been it has been prophesied by the Brahmin who came to bless him that Mr. Biswas is going to become something of a omen, something of a evil for his family, and he will be the cause of the downfall and the poverty of the family. And this is how this is I'm laughing because it gets very dark, but the writing is very comically told, and it's very hard to tell whether the events that happen, the dark events, Mr. Biswas's father's death and the decline of the family, does it happen because of that prophecy, because truly Mr. Biswas is a woman, or because fate has determined it to be so? So it is very hard to tell. I think it's very relatable to Oedipus. You can't tell as if the oracle, is it the oracle's prophecy that takes Oedipus towards his doom, or is it something else? Is it his actions? So this is the same thing, this, and I think this conflict between fate and human action, whether our destiny is determined by our fate, something which is already predetermined, or it is determined by our actions, something we can choose, something we can control by our will. uh, so this conflict, this novel starts with this very essential age, uh, ancient, you can call it ancient conflict, which we find in literature and also in human life. We often, if something bad happens to us, we think in both the ways. We think that this is fated, and we also think that this has happened because of our own gullible nature, or our, because of our own fault. And This is how the novel starts, with Mr. Biswas's the prophecy made by Brahmin that Mr. Mohan Biswas is going to become the cause of the downfall of his family, and his family truly goes through a decline. They are in dire poverty, and they have to take help from their other relatives, the wealthier ones. And it seems Mr. Biswas, since a young age, has to uh, uh, you know uh, move from one place to another, and he cannot fit in any place, and there's always some ill ominous events follow him wherever he goes, and he gets derided, disgraced, humiliated. But the writing, I must say, V.S. Naipaul, the writing is quite scathingly real, and at the same time it's so comic and humorous. The dark comedy, the flavor of dark comedy in the novel, it will make you want to laugh, make you also feel piteous, also feel pity for the character, Mr. Biswas. And it is because Mr. Biswas is so much like us. He's so vulnerable. He's so much like us. He's a vulnerable person. He can become insensitive. He has his bouts of anger, and he is, and this is very comic. I'll tell a short instance from book, is that throughout the book, Mr. Biswas keeps reading Marcus Aurelius's Meditations. Now, we all know Marcus Aurelius was a Stoic philosopher, and his philosophy was all about that one should be one should preserve their integrity in the face of dire suffering. And Mr. Vishwas, who reads this book, Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, has no quality of a Stoic philosopher in him. This is the irony, and Naipaul shows it in a very beautiful way, that we are not sometimes what we read. Our intellectual pursuits, our do not determine our actions. We are not only what we read. Uh, and Mr. Biswas is very vulnerable. He can become insensitive. He has his bouts of anger, and he is so much like us that you can't help uh, laugh at him, feel pity for him, and he just lips out of the book, out of the pages of the book, and as if at the end of the novel you will feel like as if you have known him for quite a bit of long time. And uh, okay, I'll continue the plot of the story. Mr. Biswas, it was prophesied he will become the cause of the downfall of his family. Then, as his life goes on, he becomes a painter of signs. He paints those advertisement boards in the island of Trinidad, and he becomes love struck with a girl, and he gets married. He gets married in the family of the Tulsis, and the Tulsi family, he also cannot adjust with that family. They give him a corner to live in because Mr. Vishwas has no house of his own. So the whole search that is carrying the plot, uh, driving the plot of the novel, is Mr. Biswas's search for a home, to of a place he can call home. And it seems he gets pushed from door to door, and he is an exile everywhere. He faces the dark forces of nature, he faces the cruelty of man, and when he comes to Tulsi family, he cannot adjust properly. The Tulsi family in-laws are very cruel to him about his upbringing, about his religious inclinations. They question him, and he is no less of a troublemaker. He is Mr. Biswas is not also a very benign, kind person. He's very sarcastic, and he he always has this querulous conflict with his in-law family, which can become very comic and very disturbing at the same time. And uh, uh, and there is also this undercurrent of violence against Mr. Biswas. In fact, he even gets beaten up in his in-laws family once. Uh, then Mr. Biswas, one day he leaves the Tulsi family. He goes to a different part of the island called Port of Spain, and there he becomes a journalist of a newspaper called the Sentinel, and he's quite a good career in journalism. And then slowly he saves money, and then he at the almost before his death, he builds a house of his own. And the happiness and the surprise, and also the house has some issues with it, and Mr. Bishwas also has his complaints. uh, at the end, Mr. Bishwas, uh, uh, before Mr. Bishwas, uh, he contracts a heart disease and he dies. And before his death, uh, he requests. There is a very funny request, and I'll read it out to you. Uh, uh, Please hold on, have patience. I'll read out uh, from the pages of the novel. Uh, so, Mr. Bishwas, uh, it says that he, Mr. Biswas, had also said that when his own death was reported, he would like the headline to be "Roving Reporter Passes On." But the Sentinel has changed, and the headline he got was "Journalist Dies Suddenly." No other paper carried the news. An announcement came over twice on rediffusion sets all over the island, but that was paid for. So, Mr. Biswas, a man who keeps reading Marcus Aurelius throughout the book, is not an epitome of self control and stoic indifference to the fears of life. In fact, he is quite the opposite, it seems. Mr. Biswas is vulnerable to ironical comments of others, especially from his in law's family, and does not fail to respond with cutting, sarcastic remarks. He is easily frightened by his own imaginings of the future and by the littleness of his existence, marked against the backdrop of vast, inimitable nature and unremarkable destiny awaiting him. Mr. Biswas's story is the life of an unremarkable man who keeps alive a penchant and jest for life even against the face of absurdity. Now, the very big words I have read out just few moments ago. This was a review that I wrote in my Facebook post about this book. So, uh, Naipaul's writing does not take away Mr. Biswas's dignity. It does not betray him. I think Mr. Biswas would have preferred his life to be narrated in the way Naipaul does. Aloof, unsparing, but truthful. So, I I think all of you should read this book, especially for the character of Mr. Biswas and how humane and how vulnerable he is, and also for the fact that how he endures throughout his life, how he manages to endure. And you should really give it a go. And also, I've been reading this book, Abdul Razak Gurna, who is also a Nobel Prize winner. I've been reading his book Afterlives. All of these books come under the uh, canon of post-colonial literature, but I really don't like to theorize books too much, although I am required to do it for a living as an academician. But I do not like to do it. I'd rather talk about books. Uh, I want to talk about what emotional impact they had on me, like a layman. I think it is very necessary that we should talk about books uh, in a very laymanish way, uh, uh, we but is a very raw way, without theorizing too much, because otherwise if we theorize, there are a lot of theories, there are a lot of objective arid articles written about these books, and this actually does not make me want to read these books. When I read a paper in the journal about a book, this does not make me want to read that book, because most of these articles are so dry. uh, it is written for a very ulterior purpose, uh, for helping someone progress in their academic career. And also these articles are these articles are very pricely, and I would like the students of literature, I would want to tell them that enjoy books first, then you theorize them. Don't read theories and then uh, put the book in a, in that theory, in that block. Don't put labels on that book. What is your raw first response towards the book? That matters a lot. And with this, I want to end this video. Thank you for having the patience to listen to me. And surely, after I read Afterlives, and this book has been this book has war, love, terror, trauma, everything in it, and I would really love to speak about it. So I think I'll finish it in within 2 days, and I would give you my first raw response of the book. So thank you for being patient and listening to me. Thank you. Good night.